there's a dark cloud looming. You know what I mean? So now in comes the feds. You know, uh, when did you get to the first whiff that these people was on your ass? You know what I mean?
Oh, well, I know that, you know what I mean, from the streets coming in. You know what I mean? They never liked me there. And, you know, I was a target before music. You know what I mean? And I understood, okay, I'm a target, you know, probably rightfully so. But, you know, when I chose to, you know, transition, then they never wanted me to forget, or they never wanted me to believe that, you know, I could exercise my entrepreneurship in corporate America. And
I'm just speaking on it because they keep attaching it to your name, your brand. A Duke the Jeweler situation, right on Dice Game when it's tied to y'all.
I know people were associating me with that Duke the Jeweler situation because I went to Labusi pool party and he happened to be there and he happened to be standing on me. I mean, right next to him. The truth is, I never met him before. I had no idea who he is.
We met that dude, Duke the Jeweler, the night before. We was gambling. The next day, dude followed us to the concert. When we left out the concert, we under the garage. Dude went to his car by himself.
The social media started trying to point a finger because he was standing next to me, and it's just unfortunate.
As J. Prince Jr. explained what happened, he says neither incident was due to a dice game. Mike Prince said this.
Takeoff's family, you know what I'm saying, his loved ones, we love them and respect them too. You know what I'm saying? So it's like when ours was took that night. You know?
I ain't gonna leave him out. You know, I'm just real like this, you know, because, you know, niggas be throwing rocks and hiding their hand, right? They be throwing rocks and hiding their hand. And I don't like them kind of individuals. You know, and the truth of the matter is, you know, one can dance and different things in front of your different cameras and all that kind of shit. And when reality, the truth of the matter is, you know, nigga, you wasn't really right there with Takeoff when he was alive. You know what I mean? So for you to be
Man, Lord,
we supposed to be man.
that's rough.
Oh, he's right. That nigga don't have a thousand dollars on that. 500,000.
What you here for?
There are moments where one decision changes everything. One phone call, one location, one wrong place at the wrong time. And now, a man who showed up out of loyalty is reportedly fighting for his life, while another man who never even pulled a trigger could be the one facing the biggest consequences. So, how did a normal night in Houston turn into one of the most talked about situations of the year? Because this story is deeper than it looks. It starts with a name that carries serious weight, J. Prince Jr. If you know anything about Houston, you already know that name isn't just industry, it's influence. His father built an empire through Rap-A-Lot Records, shaping Southern hip-hop and putting legends on the map. That kind of legacy doesn't just disappear, it carries power. And J. Prince Jr. has been moving in that shadow for years, trying to build his own lane. But here's the problem. His name keeps showing up in situations that have nothing to do with music. And every time it does, the conversation gets heavier. But this situation, this one hit different. Because this time, someone else paid the price. NBA Ben Tees. Not a random name, not just another affiliate. This is someone deeply connected to NBA YoungBoy's circle, someone known for loyalty, someone who's been around for years, not chasing attention, not looking for clout. Just solid. The kind of person who shows up when called. And that right there might be what changed everything. Because from everything being said right now, Ben 10 didn't start this situation. He walked into it, and once he did, there was no walking out the same. But this story doesn't just involve two people. There's a third name that shifts everything. All Star Jr., a Detroit rapper with his own reputation. Not new to pressure, not unfamiliar with conflict. And according to multiple circulating reports, the tension between him and J. Prince Jr. didn't start that night. It started earlier, over something personal. A woman. More specifically, a situation involving All Star Jr.'s child's mother. Now, to be clear, details around this are still unconfirmed, but multiple sources point to that being the root of the issue. And when personal disrespect mixes with public image, things don't stay quiet. They build. And eventually, they explode. Which brings everything to April 8th. Houston, late night. A restaurant called Confessions. At first, nothing unusual. People inside, music playing, normal energy. But at some point, word starts spreading. All Star Jr. is in the building. And that's when things reportedly shift. Because instead of letting it go, a move gets made. Calls start happening. People start pulling up. Energy changes. And before anyone really understands what's about to happen, it's already too late. All Star Jr. is trying to leave. That's the key detail a lot of people keep coming back to. He wasn't walking in. He was walking out. And that's when the confrontation happens. Near the elevators, multiple people, one target. It starts fast. Shouting, movement, pressure. Then it turns physical. Reports say he was surrounded, pushed, hit, chaos building in seconds. And in that moment, it looked like it was about to be a one-sided situation, until everything flipped. Because somewhere in that chaos, a weapon hits the ground. And that changes everything. All Star Jr. allegedly grabs it. And within seconds, everything erupts. Shots ring out. Panic spreads instantly. People running, screaming, no control. What started as a confrontation turns into something nobody can take back. When police arrive, it's already bad. 2 people hit, one with multiple wounds, the other in critical condition. And that's when the name starts spreading. NBA Ben Tees. The same person who showed up out of loyalty, now in the hospital, fighting. And then the rumors begin. Not just injured, not just recovering, but possibly facing life-changing damage. Paralysis. Now, nothing official has confirmed that yet. No direct statement, no clear update. But the silence, that's what's making people uneasy. Because in situations like this, silence usually means something serious is happening behind the scenes. And while one side is dealing with the physical consequences, the other side is dealing with something else entirely? Because legally, this situation isn't simple. Almost immediately, the narrative starts forming. Self-defense. Reports suggest All Star Jr. was outnumbered. Under attack, reacting in the moment. And based on early information, that claim holds weight. No immediate charges. No public arrest tied directly to the shooting itself. Which shifts the focus. Because if the person who pulled the trigger was defending himself, then attention turns to something else. Who set it in motion? And this is where J. Prince Jr.'s name comes back into the spotlight. Because according to multiple reports, he didn't just happen to be there. He allegedly made the call. The call that brought people to that location. The call that led to that confrontation. And that's where things get serious. Because in situations like this, being the trigger isn't the only thing that matters. Setting the stage can be just as important. And if investigators can connect those dots, then the situation changes completely. That's why people are watching this so closely. Because it's not just about what happened in those few seconds. It's about everything that led up to it. And when you zoom out, a bigger conversation starts forming. Because this isn't the first time J. Prince Jr.'s name has been connected to controversy. People online have already started pointing out patterns. Moments where his name appears close to serious situations. Nothing proven in those cases, but enough to make people ask questions. And when patterns start forming, perception changes. Now add another layer. NBA Young Boys Camp. There's already been tension there. So the fact that someone from that circle was even in this situation, that raises even more questions. And then there's All-Star Jr. He walked into Houston and walked out alive. That alone creates its own narrative. A narrative the internet runs with fast, because survival in a situation like that instantly puts a spotlight on you. But legally, his situation isn't completely over either. Even with self-defense claims, investigations don't just disappear. There are still layers to unpack. Witness statements, camera footage, timelines that have to match up perfectly. Because in cases like this, it's not just about what happened in the moment. It's about everything leading up to it. There are still questions, still processes, still consequences that can play out over time, quietly, behind the scenes, long after the headlines fade. But through all of this, there's one reality that doesn't change: Ben sane. Because beyond the headlines, beyond the debates, beyond who people think was right or wrong, there's a real person in a hospital right now, a person who didn't start this situation, a person who wasn't the center of the conflict, a person who showed up and got caught in something bigger than himself, and may now be dealing with consequences that don't go away next week or next month, but possibly for life. And that's the part people can't ignore, because it forces a bigger question. At what point does loyalty become dangerous? At what point does backing someone turn into risking everything? At what point does power, influence, and reputation start pulling people into situations they never should have been in? Because this wasn't just about one night. This was about decisions, calls made, and the ripple effect those decisions can have long after the moment is over, moves planned, and how fast everything can spiral once it starts. Now, everything comes down to what happens next. The investigation is still active. Footage exists. Stories are being compared. And sooner or later, the full picture is going to come out. The only question is, who does it impact the most? Because one man is already dealing with the physical cost. And depending on what gets proven, another could be facing something just as serious in a completely different way. And that's what makes this situation hit different. It's not just about what happened. It's about how it happened. And who made it happen? So now the real question is, was this all avoidable? Or was this always where things were heading? Because once those answers come out, everything changes. And the truth is, we're not at the end of this story yet. Not even close. More details are going to surface. More footage. More statements. And when they do, the entire narrative could shift overnight. So if you want the real updates, not the watered-down versions, not the rumors, but the full breakdown as things unfold, make sure you're tapped in. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on notifications. Because the moment something new drops on this situation, you already know we're breaking it down first. Stay locked in.